Hello, I am Adrianna, and I'm going to share with you how to have meaningful recreation and leisure in your life, and tips and tricks on how to cultivate your moments. Hello, Hailey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Adrianna. How are you?
I'm doing good. So welcome and thank you so much for coming today. I'm so excited to hear from you and really hear your role as a recreation therapy assistant and how we can really bring insight from that. So I'm wondering, to start us off, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. And well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be on your podcast and I'm really looking forward to this. So my name is Hailey Kanak. I'm a recreation therapy assistant. I have a diploma in therapeutic recreation from Norquest College. I graduated from that in 2018. My Norquest experience was so positive, so I continued my education with them in a post-diploma certificate in mental health recovery. And I graduated from that in 2019. And then yet again, I have continued my education and I'm currently actually taking a bachelor's in health administration through the Athabasca University. Just because I think it will give me a really broad understanding of the Canadian health system and just help me be a bigger voice and an advocate for clients in my care. I guess like a little bit about myself, I'm definitely an extrovert person. I love the outdoors. I love riding my bike. I love going kayaking. I do cross country skiing. I love hiking. And I guess a little bit indoorsy thing that I like to do. I like to paint watercolor sometimes. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's so interesting that you took like a mental health recovery. I think, mental health is so important, not only for, someone with a mental health diagnosis, but everyone. So I think, that recovery process can be applied to a lot of people. So I can
Mhm.
imagine that was really interesting. I
It
know.
was very interesting and definitely like it gave me a better understanding of that almost anybody can that you meet might have a mental health concern, and I guess like how prevalent it is and just how many different ones there are. And yeah, it was just a super interesting certificate and I really enjoyed it.
I too, as many of the audience know, went to Norquest and had an amazing experience. And that's really interesting that you're now taking it as a bachelor's of health admin. And I'm wondering, you mentioned a little bit about advocating and getting to know the Canadian health system. I'm wondering, what kind of role do you think that would play, and if you want it just to supplement recreation therapy, or if you're leaning towards that kind of work.
So yeah, a reason why I took it is because I really wanted to continue my education, but I just I knew that I wanted to do something in the health field, but I was like, oh, like I don't really want to be necessarily a rec therapist. I'm really content being a therapy assistant, but I was like, oh, do I want to do that for the rest of my life? So by taking the health admin, like you can work in, I guess, like a variety of different like levels of different health administration and management. Do I ever think I'm going to, be some huge big manager at some place? No, but like I guess just like another type of leadership role that isn't necessarily in recreation therapy, but just in healthcare in general, maybe down the road in my future. And yeah, I just like was like, like I want to learn more about the healthcare system. And I just felt like it was a good backbone because like people sometimes see recreation as just being like fun. And I was like, well, if I take something like that is pretty like firm basis about how the structure in Canada is developed, I was like, well, I think like this could help advance like just like the profession as a whole, just being like that we have broad education and we don't just necessarily have like diplomas and degrees in recreation and leisure studies.
Yeah, I think it will definitely bring a new lens and a new aspect to it, and really, in any position in rec therapy, lots of the time we're working with the healthcare system. So having that background information in the admin side and the Canadian policies, I'm sure will be such an asset to have. So that's awesome. Another question I kind of have is, how did you find the recreation therapy field, and what's your story behind that?
So how I found the recreation therapy field, like I definitely like stumbled upon it. I was always like that kid that was in like recreation and leisure, and I was definitely leaning towards wanting to do a leisure or recreation for a job, but I didn't know if I wanted to like work like at like a community like rec center. So then I guess I got my first kind of like indication of rec therapy without even knowing it. When I was in grade 11, like my grandmother, she had like a fall and she had to go to like a subacute care center. So they had like activities for the residents to participate there, but like I don't know, like she didn't because she was focused on like wanting to get home and like just get back to her life and all that. So I was didn't really pay too much mind to it, but I was like, oh, that's cool that they have activities here. And then so that was when I was in grade 11. And then when I was in grade 12, I was actually like trying to decide what I want to do for post-secondary. And I was flipping through the Norquest view book and I was like, oh, wait, there's a program that's like recreation and it helps people. And I was like, oh, that's like what they were doing at that place where my grandma was. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this all makes sense now. So I pursued it and it was the certificate. So I was kind of like, okay, like if I don't like it, like I'll still have something and I've still accomplished something, but I've totally really fallen in love with the profession and just feel like it's really meant for me at this time in my life and probably for quite some time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like so many people's story, they've just stumbled upon it. I know for myself, I too stumbled upon it. I was in conservation biology and I took like a class as a filler elective, and it was called Life, Leisure, and the Pursuit of Happiness. And it had like one paragraph about it. And I had ran into rec therapists before, but I didn't know who they were. So I didn't even know that that was a profession. And when I found that, it's like a light bulb moment for lots of people in the profession. I find that
Mhm.
all of those passions align. On that topic, I'm wondering, I think this is very different for everyone, so I'm wondering if you can explain what meaningful recreation and leisure look like to you.
Yeah, so I think meaningful recreation and leisure to me, and I guess how I describe it to others, is it's very individual and it's not one size fits all. Like what I like to do for recreation, like you, Adriana, like you may not like kayaking or cross country skiing or whatever that may be. So I think I just believe that meaningful recreation is anything that helps your personal well-being in a holistic manner or specifically targets one area of your life. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, like I want to do these physical activities to lose weight, but more so like I just want to do physical activities because it makes me feel good and provides me with confidence, or it just it just makes you overall just feel healthy and like you're doing something good for yourself. But that, yeah, so like holistically just being good for your mental, or your physical, your spiritual, all of those things. And whatever that goal may be, even if it's a small goal, I definitely just think that that is the meaning behind why you do something.
Yeah, yeah, I think you tapped into a really interesting conversation that I haven't even thought about, and that's purpose and everyone's purpose being different. So not only are we getting meaning from different places, but we're also finding purpose from different places. I think they're similar but different terms. But I
Hmm.
feel like purpose can sometimes, dig deeper in a word. So yeah, that's a really awesome thing. And yeah, it definitely is individualized. And yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know you've explained a little bit about your profession and, your background schooling, which is going to be so interesting in leading the conversation going forward. I know lots of people may know of what a recreation therapist is and maybe not. But I'd really love for you to explain what a recreation therapy assistant is and, what some of your jobs look like in that position.
Yeah, so definitely like the main job, and I think probably the most obvious one is like the whole facilitation of the programming. But there's like so much more to our role. I just think that maybe people don't realize we're there for the clients in so many different aspects. Like we're there to support their emotions and like their successes and like empowering them. Like we're there to build rapport and build relationships with clients, and I think like that is such a key piece. Like I just think like out of anything that I would like to do, like if I can build like a strong relationship with a client, like I just think that's so amazing. And like I really think like I've had some success with that. I think like that's like a really big piece of our role, is the building the relationship and making people feel comfortable in their homes. Encouraging people to like, I guess, embrace their challenges and their changes that they may experience, because really it's in our skills to like kind of dig that out of them and be like, like you can still do this, and I'm going to show you how you can do it, and it might look a little bit different, but we can try our best, and just try to figure out their passions and what they enjoy doing, and to empower them so that they feel good about themselves.
I think we have such an amazing trait in pulling from their strengths and allowing them to see that. And you mentioned facilitation and really that therapeutic bond that we get with our clients. I think because we're having those, deep conversations, or because in recreation and leisure, lots of the time I find, my clients disclosing things that most people don't know about them. And with that, I feel like we are such a vital role in advocating for our clients, because they may disclose things that they hadn't shared with others, and we can really be that person to advocate for our clients and their needs. So yeah, I really think so important, and such an important and vital role. Some follow-up questions to that is, what do you think are some core concepts that as recreation therapy assistants we have and really help us in our profession and just help us build that relationship with our clients?
Like we have pretty strong communication skills as recreation therapy assistants. And I think like most people in our profession, like they are pretty open-minded to what their client may be experiencing, and like we try not to like make biases and things like that, like as I'm sure other professionals do as well. And like maybe not asking some deep questions early on, definitely just like letting them come to your program and be like passive if that's what they want to do, and like kind of just find their place, and just know that like this is like a safe environment, and like it's a comforting environment. So I think that is like a good key concept to our skill set. Organization, and I think being adaptable. So like those are very interesting because they have to work in conjunction with each other. Like I have like a system that works for me, but like that system won't necessarily work for my clients, and almost often doesn't work for my clients. I'm like, okay, like this is what I want to accomplish, and I kind of just like let it flow naturally for like, okay, like I'm not going to do like A, B, C, and D. I'm just going to be like, okay, this is the stuff I need. I'm going to show up and we're going to try it. And if I need to adapt in the moment, like that's I always try to like bring a few other things with me, because sometimes what you bring with you to your program might not be working in that day or that moment or for that client. So
Yeah, I completely agree. And you said that you mentioned that you work with individuals who have dementia. And so, not only that, but just anyone. Um, their interests are going to vary day to day,
mhm.
and year to year. And so I think it's such an important thing of, having a program A, B, C, and D, because you never know what they're feeling. If they're all a little bit tired, if the client population is tired, or if you're tired, maybe a physical program isn't the best thing. Maybe they need a relaxation program. So it's so interesting. And I agree that, being able to be adaptable is so important, especially, in the past year when we've had COVID, we've had to, reinvent so many wheels and really refocus lots of things in recreation therapy.
Yes, definitely. Like I think COVID like has really, it's been like kind of like one of those things, like a blessing in disguise, because I think it's really like gone to show like the strengths of like recreation professionals, because I think when people weren't allowed to visit indoors and things like that, nursing staff and other staff, like they didn't have the time or necessarily the resources to even like facilitate different types of visiting, whether that was like a window visit with a telephone or like an iPad visit on Zoom. So I think like it really brought to light that, like, like recreation, like we still had to do other things, but you know we had to figure out a way to like get these people connected with their families and stay connected with their families. Yeah, and among other things, like like adapting programs, definitely that adaptation piece has really, I think, shone through and been like, oh, okay, like, this is, we need to make a change. And like I think change is good, and it like keeps everybody, I guess, in your department kind of, I don't know, like fresh and like up on like their skills, and like empowers like the staff to like maybe want to try new things or find new ideas and stuff. Definitely for me, like I was definitely felt like, like I really want to like make changes, and you try to provide the best programming that we still can, even when we have limitations.
I feel like not only in our programs have changed, but even like, I don't know about you, but my personal recreation and leisure has changed and adapted so much over the past year and a bit because
Hmm.
of that. And, connecting with the family members is so important. I feel like social connection really got shone through and brought out of how important it is and how, that recreation and leisure plays into those social connections. So
Definitely, yes, yes.
next, I just want to talk about, as we mentioned before, of how meaningful recreation can be and how important, our role is as recreation therapy assistants. I'm wondering, how can recreation therapy assistants have a meaningful impact on clients?
I think definitely like bringing enjoyment to everyday life, empowering and encouraging like that strength-based approach, helping clients not get down on themselves, enhancing their quality of life and well-being, while providing leisure and recreation outlets when they themselves don't necessarily have the skills or the materials to initiate leisure on their own. I think it's really on our like plate and our responsibility to like make sure that like if somebody has like a leisure that they know how to do, or recreation that they know how to do, and they just need the materials and the supplies, like it's, I think it's really important that we provide that to them, because we're not necessarily always going to be teaching things to people, because like these people have had lives before they've come into our care and have their own interests. Some people, they might not have their own recreation and leisure prior to this. So I think really having to maybe encourage and motivate, get people out of their shell, in a way that they know that they're like not going to be judged by the other people in the group. And I guess going into that, like having a meaningful impact on clients, when there is judgment in a group, I definitely think like it's our responsibility to kind of, like address like, like, oh, like we need to be inclusive to everybody, or, do what makes you happy. And if you are comfortable doing that, you do it. And if you're not comfortable doing this, like don't feel pressured to by the other people in the group, kind of thing. So definitely just like embracing their changes in their lives, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, a big thing that you talked about is the client's interests. And you mentioned this before when talking about, meaningful recreation and leisure and what it means to you. When we're thinking about that person-centered care, their interests are in the middle and part of who they are. And just like you said, of, they come in there, it's not like they've never heard of recreation and leisure before, and it's not like they don't have past hobbies. And a really amazing success story that really plays into this is one of my clients was a geologist, and I brought my rock collection, and it was as if it was, the best birthday ever. And he got to play and be in that interest. Um, and it's so important to bring those. And I think, lots of clients that have those previous interests and may have some cognitive changes, they may need just our support. And you talked about lots of different things. So another thing was, the facilitation and really making sure that we have a safe space. I think that's so important. And, you know, redirecting. Yeah, we have so many different amazing qualities and education to back that and knowledge to back that. So I guess another question to kind of tap into that and add on to that, how can caregivers also tap into these meaningful impacts on clients? So I know we shared lots of different topics, and you advocate for, recreation and leisure in personal life as well. So, caregivers and really just opening it up to everyone. How can we focus on having meaningful impacts to, I guess, really just our community and our loved ones?
Well, I think like there comes like a piece where staff at facilities and recreation staff like might have to, I guess, maybe educate the caregivers a little bit on like what's kind of available to their family member to participate in. And sometimes we have to like explain, and it's kind of like a little bit, sometimes it's a little bit awkward, I guess, in a way, like, because like if they like are like, well, what's this like sensory thing? And like like, okay, like that's probably not appropriate for their family member. And like, I guess like explaining to them like the different like maybe levels of things that we do. um and I guess I think like some caregivers, well, not some, but like I think everybody and just anybody in general can probably benefit from a little bit of education on how to support people, because when you become a caregiver, whether you're a working professional or like you are a caregiver or a family member of someone, it can be a pretty challenging time. And like I recently took like a little course on how to support caregivers in specific to COVID-19, but it had some really awesome points in it. And it's provided by caregivercare.ca. It's developed by the University of Alberta, I believe. It's free. And it was just like a really good course on, supporting people and like realizing that their life has changed. And while like you as a caregiver are experiencing challenges, like your family members experiencing challenges, even though they're being completely cared for, really asking the right questions, and kind of teaching you like when to use an open-ended question and when you should like use a closed-ended question, to, I guess, really make the caregiver feel like they're supported.
There's really two really amazing points that I'm thinking about when I'm hearing you. And that's really, in that education piece, I feel like, I don't know if this happened for you, but for me, I found that educating the caregiver or family member on the strengths the clients do have, because I feel like sometimes they're very focused on all of the things they may have lost or the functions that they previously had. And so, really focusing on, oh, well, your family member did this art project or they were able to do this program, and really bringing out and highlighting that client as someone who still has those capabilities and abilities. The second thing is, yes, I think family members need just as much support as their family. And also, I think that they can deal with a lot of burnout really easily too.
Definitely, yeah. And like it's just such a huge transition. So I think like remembering that, like, like for the most part, like these people may have not experienced this before. Like some people definitely have, but even if they have, I think it's so individual, just trying to bring out those strengths and realize that, we like your family member can still do things and we're going to help them do things.
Yeah, for sure. Meeting them where they're at is such a big thing for sure.
hmm
So I guess next, I really want to talk about how can we highlight and bring out the importance of recreation therapy assistants and their education, connections, strategies, and resources that they do have. Because sometimes I feel like that's shadowed by, the recreation therapist, who I think they're really even team members. They both play such an important role. So yeah, I'm wondering if you can share a bit about that.
Okay, so I think we can really bring out the light in a recreation therapy assistant role. I think like the biggest step is definitely like you as the therapy assistant I think need to be prepared to maybe advocate for yourself a little bit, but also like if that's not something that you're really interested in, like I think gaining support from your recreation therapist to like try to maybe include you in different things or have tasks like delegated to you. You need to like form a bond with your rec therapist on kind of like how do you want to grow as a professional and like how can they support you? And like if you want to learn something in another area from like a different allied health professional or like a nursing staff or something like that, I think the biggest thing that we need to do for ourselves is definitely we should speak up about it. Myself personally, like I try to be involved as much as I can in all aspects of the care community.
Yeah, yeah, that's really awesome. And I think a really interesting part about recreation therapy assistants is one, they're so important, and we wouldn't have the recreation therapy services that we do in many supportive long term care and independent programming, as well as many other populations that we
Hmm.
do without them. And I think something that's really interesting is education and continued education for us. So I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about, you know, just because we're a recreation therapy assistant doesn't mean that we can't continue, and we do have those competencies to continue that education. So sharing a little bit about that and some strategies and resources we have as professionals.
So I definitely think yes, we 100% we have the ability, just like everybody has the ability to learn and grow their knowledge base. I think you just have to be open-minded to doing so. So I guess just don't get stuck in a rut and be like, oh well, I just do recreation, so that's what I'm gonna do. I think if you want to improve your skills, I think you have to know where to look. But you can also ask like other staff members, and I think really connecting with your like other people in other departments is helpful on like learning about like where to find something new. um a few courses that I have taken have definitely not been in recreation. So like that caregiver one didn't really have anything to do with recreation, but it definitely like felt made me feel more confident in my capabilities. Um, I also took a course from the University of Victoria on Canadian Falls prevention curriculum, and like that. While that's not like my main skill set, I was like, oh my goodness, like there's so many things now that like I see in an environment and I'm just like, oh, like that, like somebody could fall on that, or like if people are like not ambulating properly with their walker, like I'm like, oh, like your walker maybe should get raised up, like let's go see if you need it raised up or
Mhm.
whatever that may be. Talking to other professionals and staying connected to your college, if you've gone to a college and university and are in this profession, um, they have really great resources. Lots of colleges have like continuing education certificates, that so like they're just quick and short. You don't have to commit for a long period of time.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think just really being open and being like, hey, like you can take a course in pretty much any type of healthcare field and get a little snippet and be like, wow, like I feel so much more confident in that area. So don't just focus on recreation and leisure certificates.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so many professionals, not only recreation therapy assistants or recreation therapists, can learn from this and be inspired by this because, everyone in their profession has to be open to change. The world is always changing. COVID showed us that really well. And also that by continuing our education, regardless of the field we're in, is going to continue our competency in it too. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Moving forward to, a broader outlook of not only recreation professionals, but the general public and just the community as a whole.
I think the biggest thing is figuring out what you or your friend or whatever like wants to target, improve, or change about their lifestyle, something about their health or their well-being. And find out like a recreation modality that you find interesting. and figure out the benefits that you're looking for. Talk to a recreation professional if you're able to. I do realize that, recreation professionals, like, they're kind of hard to come by. So I do have two resources. The first is Live Through Rec, and they have a virtual platform. I think they're based out of the United States, and they are recreation therapists that do virtual consults, and can kind of help you, figure out your goals and your needs and all that thing. And the second one, I believe she is based in Ontario, and she is April, and she has Wellness with April H. She's on Instagram, and she also has a website, and she also does like virtual consults, to my knowledge, just from what I've seen on her profile and all that. So I think those are some great options, especially if you are somebody living in the community and you don't really know where to start. Because, getting a referral to a recreation therapist isn't exactly, as easy as going to a doctor and being like, I want to see a recreation therapist, because they might not be able to help you, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think, as we advance our profession and things, maybe one day somebody can go to the doctor and say, I think I need help in recreation and leisure. And I think, like, just really being able to figure out how to use your resources in your community. So, going to a leisure center or using the internet and just trying to, figure it out as best as you can. Or, there's lots of recreation and leisure Instagram accounts now coming out. So, if you follow me, on my Instagram, you can find quite a lot. So you can learn quite a bit, I think, from just utilizing the internet. But yeah, definitely, like, I 100% think people should connect with a professional if they're able to.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And yeah, I think in my dream world, someone could go to the doctor and be like, hi, my recreation is lacking. Can you take me to a rec therapist? Like, can you send me a referral? And I think that's so important because I think recreation and leisure have so many benefits and provide us with such an amazing approach and balance and capability to recharge from either the
Hmm.
workday or just life in general. And I know on your Instagram account, you really talk and share about resources and advocating for recreation therapy. And there's two really important parts, or a few actually, that I really want to highlight and hone in on. And so one is leisure lifestyle. So I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit about what leisure lifestyle is.
Yeah, so I think I would define a leisure lifestyle, and like what I learned in school is like a leisure lifestyle. So like when you hear that, you might hear like, or you might think like, oh, like your lifestyle is just totally leisure, like, you know, when it's not. A leisure lifestyle is actually like, what do you like to do in your leisure time? So like I mentioned earlier, like my leisure lifestyle, I really like physical activity and physical leisure and the outdoors. um, but that's not everybody's leisure lifestyle. Somebody's leisure lifestyle could be music, and maybe that's their only leisure lifestyle, and that's totally okay.
Mhm.
um, because there's so many benefits even to music, whether that's playing music or listening to music. It can really target your whole self. um, and I guess just, yeah, you don't have to have just one domain be your leisure lifestyle. So you don't only need to target your physical health. Can you could target all of them if you really wanted to, and that's what you feel is appropriate. um so yeah, definitely, like, your leisure lifestyle is not just a life of leisure, but it's how you have leisure in your life, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you quickly mentioned domains, and I really want to take a pause because I know I had mentioned this on one of my earlier podcasts, but people might not know about this. So I'm wondering if you can explain, the domains of wellness.
Yeah, sure. So in school, as you know, we were probably taught the acronym PECS, so PECSS. So the first one, the P, is for physical. The second one is emotional. The third one is cognitive. The first S is social, and the other S is spiritual. So those are kind of the domains that recreation and therapeutic recreation focuses on as part of your well-being. So I think just realizing that your leisure and your recreation isn't necessarily just going to fit in that one domain, and you should probably try to target that one domain, like, or your main domain, but realize that there is so many more benefits to doing a leisure activity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even like I was gonna say that if you didn't, and I had a really good discussion with my preceptor about this of, you know, journaling, well, it's those fine motor skills too. So it's really,
Mhm.
if you wanted to, you could break every activity into pretty much the entire domains
Yes,
of wellness.
definitely.
It may
Yes.
have like one header that it's focusing on, but there's also a lot of different ones that it's focusing on.
Hmm.
Can you explain the benefits of a activity? And I think you do a really amazing job of this, and explaining the domains of wellness on your Instagram page.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for making such amazing resources. I really appreciate that you explain the benefits, because sometimes, and this is important to just do recreation because we're interested in it, but I think going back to recreation and leisure and really advocating for us and advocating for not only are we just fun, but there's benefits to the activities that we're doing. I think
Mhm.
you do a really amazing job at this. I know you had one on yoga and cross country skiing, and I'm excited to see what future ones you do. And I think, for myself, sometimes I get heady about it and I only think about the benefits because I have that knowledge background,
Mhm.
and that educational love. But I think a combination of both of, oh, I'm doing this activity because I enjoy it. And also there's benefits to it, which is just
Totally.
so important.
Yes, and, like, that is so important, I think, for our clients too, because, like, that is their home. Like,
Mhm.
they we are bringing recreation to them, and, like, not only should it have benefits, but, like, like, if somebody wants to come to a program because they like it and, like, like, that's not necessarily their goal, but, like, this is their home and this is their life. So I think it's very important to, like, realize that, like, people need to have fun too, and they don't always just need to be, like, working on their fine motor skills and maintaining their ability to write letters to their family. That they should be able to have enjoyment in doing any activity that they choose.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. One last thing I want to touch on about your Instagram account. Obviously, I did a very deep dive, so thank you. But one thing that you talked about was barriers to leisure, and I think this is important, um, because I think we need to remove the stigma about barriers, because I feel like everyone has barriers and sometimes there's a negative connotation. What I always like to do is explain to my clients of, I have barriers too. Everyone has some kind of limitation to their leisure lifestyle. And I think when thinking about recreation therapy assistance, we can think about removing some of those barriers. So I'm wondering if you have any things to add to that.
Well, yeah, so, like, I think we definitely have to remember, like, like, everybody's barrier is going to be different, and I might be able to name like 6 barriers, but, like, that might not be it. Like, my client might not have that barrier and they might have something completely different.
Mhm.
Um, I think just really, again, having an open mind and being like, realizing that everybody has a different struggle, and just trying to, I guess, support them as best as they can, as you can, as a professional. Um, but yeah, aside from what I have talked about on Instagram, off the top of my head, I don't have any extras, but some of the ones I did mention were like lack of confidence, no leisure partner, no financial ability to afford an activity or equipment. I think just realizing that everybody might have something different, and just being open-minded to their challenge. And
Yeah, for sure. And when you talked about, a barrier and maybe a struggle, is what I can think about is everyone has their struggles and everyone has their strengths. And it's really, overcoming those struggles and focusing on those strengths and recreation. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about it.
definitely.
Yeah. So as we close up, I'm wondering if you have any other recommendations you want to share. I know you had a course and then two rec therapists that you mentioned. But yeah, I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for anyone to continue their understanding on recreation, leisure, and even the role of the recreation therapy assistant.
Since I've chosen to be a recreation therapy assistant, lots of times people are like, "Oh, like, well, how come you didn't become a therapist?" And I'm like, "Well, like I find it actually very fulfilling being a therapy assistant, and I I feel like that's my calling, and I feel like that's like my like a good skill set that I have, and I'm able to, utilize my skills, I think, fully in the role that I do. And I think it's just really important for students who are in rec therapy or any profession that like your success is not measured by your job title. So whether you are a therapist or an assistant, or you're a pharmacist or you're a pharmacy technician, your success is not measured by your your title, and it's really in what you achieve professionally and how you impact others positively. I truly believe that like your success is in your work. So I encourage others who are interested in TR or any profession to make a goal of making a difference in people's lives. And I just think that sometimes there's imposter syndrome maybe with RTAs. And like I think maybe that's why people strive so hard to be a therapist. And like obviously we need the therapist. Like it's a whole approach. Like we need the assistants and we need the therapist. But I think sometimes people like kind of struggle and feel as though like they're not maybe if they're if they stay working as an assistant in any role, like that they're not going anywhere in their life, and that's not true at all.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I just think it being an RTA is so important, and without RTAs or without any assistance in any professions, whether that's physio or OT or anything, like we are needed, and we are definitely like the hands and the feet of the of the interventions for
Yeah.
a lot of things.
I completely agree. And I appreciate you putting out that point so much. I know I have a book called Ikigai, and it's all about finding your purpose and meaning in life. And my mom always told me, I don't care what you are, as long as you love your job and you're happy and passionate about what you're doing, that's all that matters. And like you said, we're just as important. And regardless of your profession, if you're, a assistant in something, it doesn't mean that you failed at any part of your job or that you're not educated enough or you can't grow in your profession.
Mhm.
You are such a vital part of that facility or that organization or company. And really, yeah, I think there's such an imposter syndrome and stigma towards that. So I appreciate you pointing that out because I know a lot of my friends going through the program also talked about, actually, I don't really know if I want to be a therapist. I love working with the clients, so I want to be the therapy assistant. And so it's really honing in on what is your strategies and what are your strengths and what's your passion,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
not allowing others to influence that, and just, being able to be true to yourself and what your interests are for sure.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that so much. I think, yeah, I can't explain how important I think it is and how important assistants are. So, to close us off, we've had such a lovely conversation and topics brought up. And I'm wondering, for the audience listening, where can they find you and how can they connect? And do you have anything in the works in the future?
So you can find me on Instagram. My name is Hailey's Holistic Health Hobbies. So you can link it. I currently don't have anything new or in the works in regards to maybe for posting on Instagram. I think my platform is currently at the moment. I think that's what I'm focusing on.
Mhm.
Um, Potentially in the near future, I might have something to share about professional life and like my skills that I'm hopefully acquiring soon. I hope to be able to share about that. Um, and yeah, that's that.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing. I think lived experience and hearing from someone in the job is so important. And I know I'm gonna connect with our past instructors and share this with them because I think it's such a big motivation. to really hear from someone in the field and hear someone who's loving and passionate in that recreation therapy assistant role, because it is so vital. And yeah, it was such a great conversation. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.